I want you to think for a second about how absolutely exhausting it is to constantly try and optimize your life.
Oh, yeah. It really is.
I mean, I'm talking about that feeling when you wake up and before your feet even hit the floor, you're running through this massive checklist.
Right, the mental gymnastics before you even get out of bed.
Exactly. You're tracking your sleep score, trying to figure out if you have time for a cold plunge. You're mentally scheduling your time blocks.
Oh, it's a lot.
It is. And you're just trying to construct this complex, perfectly engineered daily routine entirely from scratch. I actually tried one of those viral 12-step morning routines last month.
Oh, no. How did that go?
Honestly, by 8 a.m., I needed a nap. It just feels like we are all individually trying to invent the perfect operating system for human existence, like every single day.
Yeah.
And it is burning us out.
Yeah, and it's a fundamental problem with how we approach self-improvement today. We spend an enormous amount of energy trying to architect the perfect lifestyle.
We really do. We just keep adding things.
Right, we're constantly tweaking the variables, subscribing to new apps, hoping we'll finally hit that magic formula for peace of mind.
Right.
But more often than not, that obsessive construction just leaves us completely depleted.
Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We're exploring an incredible framework that approaches this exact problem.
It's a really fascinating source text we're looking at today.
It is. The text is an essay called The Architecture of Life, and it outlines these key Islamic spiritual and practical frameworks, specifically something called the Sunnah.
Yeah, but we're looking at this through a highly practical lens today.
Exactly. The mission for our deep dive is to explore these ancient concepts, not just as religious practices, but as profound psychological safeguards. We're looking at them as tools for mental economy.
And mental economy is such a vital concept to grasp here, because we usually think of spirituality as something that demands more energy from us.
Like more reading, more rituals, more rules to follow.
Right, exactly. But this framework positions it as an elegant system for preserving human energy. It's about stopping the internal leaks, you know?
So, to understand how to stop those leaks, the essay establishes this overarching metaphor right from the start. Life is a building.
Yes, the architecture metaphor.
Right. And like any building, if the foundation is crooked or if you're building on sand, it doesn't really matter how beautiful the roof is.
No, it doesn't. The whole thing will just fall apart.
The whole structure of life falls into disorder. So, before we get into the mental economy aspect, we have to look at the foundational materials. What are the actual bricks we are laying down here?
Well, the framework rests on 4 distinct pillars. And you can't really access the mental economy without them.
Okay, so what's the first one?
The first pillar is faith, which is defined here very practically as direction. It's your compass. It orientates the building.
Okay, so faith is the direction. What's next?
The second pillar is righteous action, which is defined as movement.
Let's pause on that connection between faith and action for a second, because there's a fascinating mechanism there in the text.
Yeah, it's a really vivid warning.
It is. It's not just that you should do good things. The idea is that if belief doesn't reflect into life through tangible action, the belief itself actually weakens. The essay compares it to a light that slowly loses its brightness.
Exactly. And if you think about it in terms of neuroplasticity or just basic human habit, it makes total sense.
How so?
Well, if you have an internal value, say you believe in being a generous person, but you never actually open your wallet or give your time, that internal value starts to decay.
Right. It's just a nice thought at that point.
Yeah, exactly. The internal must manifest externally or it simply evaporates. Action is the engine that keeps the belief charged.
So we have direction and we have movement. What's the third pillar?
The third is sincerity, or ikhlas. This is the purity of the action. And this is where the mechanics get really interesting.
Okay, I love this part.
Because if your actions are tainted by if you are doing things primarily for the applause of others or to curate a certain image, those actions lose their absolute essence.
But wait, why does that happen, mechanically speaking? Like, if I give $100 to charity, but I do it just so I can post about it online, the charity still gets the money, right?
They do, yes.
So why does the show drain the value for the individual?
Because you are outsourcing your reward to an unpredictable and fickle crowd.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, when you act purely out of sincerity, the action itself is the completion of the circuit. You did it because it aligns with your compass.
That makes sense.
But the moment you do it for applause, you create a psychological dependency. If the post doesn't get enough likes, or if nobody notices your good deed, you feel empty.
Because the energy of the act is fractured.
Exactly. Sincerity is what keeps your internal structure solid, regardless of the weather outside. And that brings us to the fourth pillar, which is the Sunnah.
And how is that defined here?
This is defined as balance and ease. It acts as the measure for the other three.
So the Sunnah is like the suspension system. It keeps the direction, the movement, and the purity from tipping over into extremes.
That's a great way to look at it, because there is a very stark warning built into this architecture about the spiritual path, or really any path of personal development.
What kind of warning?
Well, people have a tendency to seek out miracles or hyper-complex systems or these lofty states.
Oh, sure. The big epiphanies.
Right. But in chasing those highs, they completely neglect this essential measure of balance. Returning to these four basic pillars is a powerful psychological safeguard against falling into the trap of the ego.
I mean, I see this constantly in modern hustle culture or the self-help world.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
People don't want to just be healthy, right? They want to biohack their way to becoming superhuman. They don't want to just be decent people. They want an overnight miracle.
Yeah, a flashy transformation.
Exactly. Some viral success that proves they've reached a lofty state. But they completely ignore the boring, unglamorous daily bricks of just taking sincere action.
Which is such a mistake.
So why is sticking to the boring basics actually the ultimate safeguard for the human ego?
Because the ego thrives on exceptionalism. The ego wants to feel special, unique, and entirely set apart from the crowd.
Right.
When you are chasing a lofty state or a miracle, your ego is in the driver's seat. It's whispering to you that you are destined for something grander than ordinary human life.
Like you aren't just meditating, you are achieving a higher plane of consciousness that normal people don't understand.
Exactly.
It turns growth into a performance.
Precisely. But sticking to the basics, the daily repetition of sincere, unglamorous action requires submission. It forces you to accept that you are bound by the same human limitations as everyone else.
Because the basics offer no immediate glory.
None at all. Nobody claps for you when you simply maintain a steady, balanced routine. They simply keep the building from collapsing.
And that quiet, steady maintenance starves the ego of the attention it desperately craves.
Yes, it strips away the performance art entirely.
So once that foundation is set, once we've starved the ego of its need to be superhuman, how do we actually live this out day to day?
That's where the concept of the Sunnah really activates. The prophetic way becomes the operational manual for the mind and body.
Right, because the text defines the Sunnah as a way of living that means measure, balance, protection from excess, and living in accordance with human nature.
That last part in key.
Living in accordance with human nature. I want to dig into that because human beings naturally tend toward extremes. We are pendulum creatures.
We really are.
We either completely loosen up, abandon all discipline, and binge watch television for 3 days straight, or we wildly over-exaggerate and overburden ourselves, trying to work 16-hour days and sleep on the floor.
Yeah, the pendulum swing is basically the defining characteristic of the modern age. We immerse ourselves entirely in the material world, chasing every desire, consuming constantly.
And then we feel sick from all that excess.
Exactly. And then we swing entirely in the opposite direction. We try to withdraw completely. We go on extreme dopamine fasts or silent retreats, punishing ourselves with austerity.
So what does the Sunnah provide instead?
It provides a middle path, which is psychologically the most sustainable. It applies a strict measure to everything: eating, speaking, worship, sleep, all of it.
I have to admit, when I hear the word measure applied to every single aspect of life, how much I eat, speak, sleep, it sounds incredibly restrictive.
It does sound like a lot of rules at first.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm putting myself in a straitjacket.
How does putting a cap on everything lead to mental economy? Doesn't that take more work?
It seems counterintuitive until you look at how the brain actually handles choices. Think about cognitive psychology and the modern obsession with decision fatigue.
Okay.
Every single choice you make, from what to eat for breakfast to how long you should work out to whether you should reply to an email right now, it all consumes metabolic energy in the brain. Oh, this is like those tech CEOs who wear the exact same black turtleneck or gray t-shirt every single day.
Exactly. Why do they do that? Because infinite choice is paralyzing. It drains your cognitive battery.
Right. We tend to think of freedom as the absence of all constraints, like the ability to negotiate everything, all the time.
But having to negotiate your own existence every morning is exhausting. By applying a predetermined measure to daily activities, you are plugging the leaks in your mental energy tank.
The framework provides a boundary.
Yes. It tells you, here's the healthy measure for sleep. Here's the healthy measure for consumption.
So you don't have to wake up and decide if you're going to be a monk today or a hedonist today. The measure is already there. The decision is made.
Right. And this leads to one of the most beautiful concepts in the text. It highlights that when the number of decisions decreases, energy is preserved. And when energy is preserved, the soul does not scatter.
The soul does not scatter. That is an incredible way to phrase it.
It's very poetic, but also very practical.
Because that scattered feeling is exactly what burnout is. It's your energy being pulled in 50 different directions because you have no set measure for any of them.
Exactly.
So if this framework acts as a dam that stops our internal energy from leaking, how does that surplus energy change the way we collide with other people out in the world?
Well, it changes everything.
Because the architecture we're discussing argues that this internal balance actually solves a massive societal problem, right?
It does. When you look at the root of social exhaustion today, so much of it comes from communication breakdowns. The text actually states boldly that half of society is exhausted by communication breakdowns.
I mean, you look at social media or even just driving in traffic, and it feels like half of society is perpetually exhausted just from dealing with each other.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone is on a hair trigger.
So how does the framework address that?
Through seemingly tiny microactions. It emphasizes things like greeting others, smiling, covering the faults of others, visiting people, giving gifts.
Just really basic human kindness.
Yeah, and remaining silent when angry. These are prescribed actions within the Sunnah that drastically reduce social friction.
Remaining silent when angry is a huge one. Think about the modern equivalent, drafting a furious email.
Oh, we've all done that.
You receive something that makes your blood boil, and your immediate instinct is to fire back. You spend 45 minutes crafting the perfect passive-aggressive response.
Yep.
You've just dumped a massive amount of your preserved mental economy into a black hole of social tension.
Right. You've just scattered your soul over an email.
Remaining silent isn't just about being polite. It's literally protecting your energy reserves.
Yeah.
But underneath all of these micro actions, the text diagnoses why we're all so tense in the first place.
And this is the part that really cuts deep.
It really made me stop and think. The core issue is that the heaviest burden a person carries is their own sense of importance.
That is the absolute crux of human fragility. When we walk around carrying a massive sense of our own importance, every interaction becomes a potential threat.
Because we have so much to lose.
Exactly. If someone doesn't greet us the right way, we are deeply offended. If a colleague points out a mistake in our work, we are crushed.
We take it all so personally.
We are incredibly defensive and exhausted because we have this highly inflated, very delicate self-image that we constantly have to protect and project.
And the framework teaches the exact opposite. It teaches radical humility. It specifically points toward actions like sitting on the ground, serving others, and intentionally striving to be ordinary.
Being ordinary is a powerful tool.
But I have to push back on this a little bit. Practically speaking, how does that work today?
What do you mean?
Well, if I sit on the ground and intentionally act ordinary at my corporate job, I'm going to get passed over for a promotion.
That's a fair point.
We live in an economy that literally pays you to stand out.
Yeah.
To build a personal brand and to scream your importance. We are rewarded for being on a pedestal.
We definitely are.
So exactly how does dropping our importance actually help us become unfragile in a world that demands we stand out?
It's a completely valid tension. But we have to redefine what being ordinary means in this context. It doesn't mean lacking ambition or doing poor work.
Okay.
It's about what you attach your core identity to. Let's look at the psychological equation from the text. As ego diminishes, fragility decreases. As fragility decreases, inner peace increases.
That makes sense in theory, but how does it look in practice?
Think of a vase perched on a very high pedestal. That is the ego. It is elevated, it is highly visible, and yes, it might be getting all the attention in the corporate office.
Right.
But it is also highly fragile. The slightest bump to the pedestal and it shatters.
Because its entire value is based on its precarious position. One bad performance review, one project failure, and the whole identity falls apart.
Exactly. Now take that same vase and place it on the floor. That is humility. Sitting on the ground, it is ordinary down there. It is not elevated above the rest of the room.
But guess what?
Yeah.
It cannot fall.
Exactly. It is inherently unfragile. When you drop the desperate need to be perceived as superior, you remove the leverage that the external world has over your emotions.
So you can still do excellent work, but you're unbothered by the office politics.
Yes. You can still create, build, and contribute, but your identity isn't tied to the applause. If you are comfortable being ordinary, an insult loses its sting. A social slight doesn't shatter your reality.
You are no longer exhausted by the need to constantly defend your status.
Right.
That actually reframes how I look at social anxiety entirely. The pedestal versus the floor. It's not about making yourself worthless. It's about bulletproofing your peace of mind so that the external world can't knock you over.
Precisely. It creates a profound inner security.
But here's my question. If reducing our ego and applying these measures brings such incredible peace, why is it so hard for people to just do it? Why do we constantly sabotage our own peace?
Because, as the essay points out, we are trapped in what we can call the chaotic experimental field of our own restless ego.
The chaotic experimental field.
Yeah, we are constantly trying to invent our own novel systems for how to live, how to be spiritual, how to be productive. We make it overly complicated because, again, our ego wants to be the author of our success.
It's like trying to invent an entirely new language from scratch, complete with new grammar and new vocabulary, just so you can walk outside and say hello to your neighbor.
That's a perfect analogy. It is a massive, unnecessary waste of energy.
It really is exhausting.
And this is where the source material contrasts our modern, chaotic experimentation with the actual life of the prophet, which serves as the model for the Sunnah.
Right, because people view spirituality differently.
Exactly. Some people romanticize spirituality as this ethereal, untouchable thing. Others make it incredibly difficult and austere, retreating from the world entirely.
But the way of the prophet was entirely livable.
That word is crucial. Livable. It is the anchor of the whole concept. He lived within life.
He didn't retreat to a mountain cave forever to escape the friction of humanity.
No, he didn't. He was married. He engaged in trade and commerce. He faced extreme struggles. He laughed. He wept. He dealt with difficult people.
He experienced the full, messy spectrum of human existence.
But he did so with that constant, steady measure we talked about earlier.
And there is a direct line from that livability to permanence.
Yeah.
What is livable becomes sustainable, and what is sustainable becomes lasting.
Exactly.
If you adopt a daily routine that requires you to wake up at 3 a.m. and sit in an ice bath, you might do it for a week, fueled by sheer motivation. But it isn't livable for a lifetime.
No, it's a pendulum swing waiting to happen.
The framework emphasizes balance in all things. The text notes there is night worship, but not to the point of complete physical exhaustion.
Right.
There was work and ambition, but not to the point of turning the material world into an object of worship.
Yeah.
There is deep love for others, but without turning the person you love into an idol that your entire world revolves around.
It is the ultimate antidote to the pendulum swing. And the essay outlines 4 major, tangible benefits of this livable balance.
Let's hear them.
First, it protects you from extremes. It stops you from flying too close to the sun or crashing into the ground.
Protection from extremes.
Second, it lightens your burden because it sets realistic measures that can actually be lived within a normal, messy, daily routine.
Makes sense.
Third, it reduces indecision. Your cognitive load is lightened because the boundaries are already set.
And the fourth benefit.
It calms the heart. Living by a steady, proven guidance produces a deep inner security.
Which brings us to the culmination of this architecture, a concept described in the text as the real ease.
The real ease.
And the real ease is the profound realization that you do not have to construct your own system from scratch. You can lean into a path that has been tested for centuries in balance.
You are completely freed from that heavy burden of playing architect for your own existence.
The cognitive and spiritual weight of having to be the sole author of your universe is just crushing.
It really is, because when you are the one constructing the system, you are also the one who has to constantly validate it, defend it, and fix it when it inevitably breaks. Right?
Why, leaning into a path that has been refined and lived for centuries, you are trusting a collective tested wisdom.
You can stop obsessing over drawing the perfect blueprint and finally just start living in the house.
I love that.
As we bring this deep dive to a close and sort of synthesize this whole journey through the architecture of life, we have to remember the core thesis here. The goal of all of this isn't to sound smart or achieve some mystical, superhuman state.
No, the goal is solid ground.
We need those 4 pillars: Faith to give us direction, action to give us movement so the belief doesn't die,
Right.
sincerity to keep our intentions pure and independent of applause, and the Sunnah to provide the balance and ease that makes it all sustainable.
It is a framework entirely designed to keep us grounded in our own humanity.
There's a beautiful closing metaphor from the text that sums this up perfectly. The issue is not to fly. The issue is to walk, but to walk firmly.
That's so profound.
We spend so much time wanting to levitate above our problems, wanting the life hacks, wanting to be unbothered and superhuman.
Trying to fly. But the real mastery, the real mental economy, is just walking firmly on the earth, unfragile, with a quiet ego and a steady pace.
It's about finding peace in the ordinary steps.
So as you go about the rest of your day, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over based on everything we explored today.
Let's hear it.
If the absolute heaviest burden we carry is our own inflated sense of importance, and if true spiritual and mental health isn't about chasing miracles, but finding a sustainable, livable balance, what is one area of your life right now where you are exhaustingly trying to fly instead of just learning to walk firmly on the ground?